Before we get started, this video was a request by one of the wonderful Subscribe Star Bros, and this one is topical for multiple reasons. But hopefully we can dispel some urban legends around this and just talk about a good fucking movie. Would you like to know more?
Rico, what's the moral difference, if any, between a civilian and a citizen?
Dream on, little broomstick cowboy, of rocket ships and Mars, of sunny days and Willie Mays and chocolate candy bars. Dream on, little broomstick cowboy, and then you'll have to go to war to try to save your home.
Kill them! Kill them all!
And then you'll have to learn to hate. You'll have to learn to kill. It's always been that way, my son. I guess it always will. And when the rockets thunder, you'll hear your brothers cry. And through it all you'll wonder just why they had to die. So dream on, little broomstick cowboy. Dream while you can, or soon you'll be a dreadful thing, my son. You'll be a man.
I don't know.
Starship Troopers. So as stated, this is a very topical movie at the moment. Starship Troopers is the 1997 film adaptation to the novel by Robert Heinlein, written in 1959. It follows our protagonist Rico as he leaves high school, unsure of what to do with his life now that he's growing out of being a teenager, and he decides to join the military in order to become a citizen. Someone given the privilege of impacting society under the condition that they provide a service, basically meaning that you can't hold public office or vote. Well, as he is in the process of joining the mobile infantry, Earth is attacked by various alien races, most notably the Bugs and the Skinnies. The Bugs are a telepathic race of arachnids that essentially colonize the galaxy by launching their eggs into space to create an ever-expanding hive mind. The Skinnies are allied with the Bugs and contracted to attack mankind, but are betrayed and instead join forces to help wipe out the Bugs and free both species from their tyranny. So this book is a massive influence on science fiction, and Heinlein is outright on the same level as guys like Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov in shaping the modern view of the genre. It's gone on to inspire God knows how many different franchises. It's actually crazy to think about. It's probably the first example of using power suits in science fiction, as the soldiers in Starship Troopers have massive suits of power armor, and that rabbit hole alone has created entire genres by itself. Iron Man and Fallout being easily some of the most famous examples of power armor in Western science fiction. James Cameron outright told the actors working on Aliens to read Starship Troopers and base their characters off how the soldiers in the book act. Even the mobile suits in fucking Gundam might have been inspired by Starship Troopers. Though without a doubt, the biggest franchise you can point to as being influenced is Warhammer 40k, which incorporated numerous aspects of the novel into its lore, from the power armor to the culture being shaped around militarism, and it mixed in elements of the Dune series with its focus on intergalactic holy war. You get the point. Starship Troopers isn't some niche property, it's a literal bedrock to modern science fiction, with its influences stretching so far that its children ended up being titans by themselves. Hell, the Halo series has some suspiciously similar plot beats to the novel at points, such as having a race of aliens enslaved to a master species that forces them to wage war against humanity until they rebel. Yeah, a little close there, a little bit. Helldivers 2, the game that absolutely took the world by storm, is not even trying to hide how much it's influenced by Starship Troopers, though much more so the movie than the book, with its over-the-top parody of humanity and a dystopia brainwashed to believe they're fighting for liberty and democracy, when all they're doing is throwing themselves at the wall in waves. And that's not even talking about the actual Starship Troopers games out there. You have a handful of games for its library: Starship Troopers Terran Ascendancy, an RTS game that came out in 2000, Starship Troopers, a shooter from 2005, Terran Command, a squad-based tactics game from 2022, and Extermination, a multiplayer FPS game that came out last year. Now, you would think Extermination was sort of snuffed out by Helldivers since that game exploded into popularity and seems to be doing the exact same job. That's actually not the case. Helldivers is all about a 4-person team going in and trying to get as many objectives and collectibles as they can within a tight time limit and increasing hordes of enemies. Extermination is about larger teams up to 16 players coordinating around one larger objective and staving off the bugs as long as you can. There's even mechanics like base building to construct defenses and outposts against the bugs. They do things very differently and have been able to coexist because people who play both games understand that they really aren't the same game by any definition. I highly recommend both, by the way. Extermination is still a little wonky. It's basically a full-size project expanding on a mod for Squad, so it's to be expected, but it has moments that emulate the movie perfectly. It's nuts. Still, Starship Troopers is one of the most famous properties in science fiction. It's not even really accurate to call it niche due to how mainstream some of its contemporaries have gotten, and the movie has only gotten more famous with time, starting off as a cult classic to being about on the same level as Evil Dead. Sure, it's a cult movie, but name one science fiction fan who hasn't at least heard of Starship Troopers. Especially since it was directed by the same guy who did fucking RoboCop, Paul Verhoeven, and the movie is easily one of the most fun things you can watch, which is saying a lot considering how fucked up it is at times, full of terrifying ideas and grisly kills that are played very straight, yet still within the lines of the golly gee whiz tone. And this is where you get the contentious debate around Starship Troopers. Is it a satire on fascism? This is a question that dominates the franchise currently, with both sides of the political spectrum weighing in to offer their input on the matter. It's an argument that's been going on for ages, with people citing Verhoeven's hatred of the original novel as proof he was taking the piss and making fun of the whole thing with the film. But those that read the original book point out just how much had to be changed in order to push his vision of a satirical space war movie, with downright massive plot holes introduced in the story because he didn't want to acknowledge concepts from the book that would add more nuance than just humanity or a bunch of Nazis. He does have elements of that in the film, with the uniforms based off SS officers. The entire opening scene is a shot-for-shot recreation of Triumph of the Will, a Nazi propaganda film Verhoeven was forced to watch when he lived in occupied Netherlands as a child, and the entire movie being framed as a literal propaganda film created by the Federation to trick people into joining. It even has commercials that show up in the middle of the story and everything. The problem is that these are decisions Verhoeven wanted, because he didn't exactly go into this with the best intentions. You see, Ed Neumeier was sitting on an idea for a number of years of a teenage rom-com, coming-of-age film where the twist was that it took place in Nazi Germany, showing the horrors of the war in the satirical style that him and Verhoeven were known for, using a black humor approach to talk about social issues, like corporate consolidation, anarcho-terrorism, and privatizing the police with RoboCop. The thing is, this worked for RoboCop because that was a story Verhoeven came up with himself. Him and Ed Neumeier, they had complete control of the story, so they had control over every little detail. Starship Troopers is adapting a novel with its own set themes and elements in it, and the book isn't a satire of fascism by any definition. The novel is essentially right-wing Star Trek. No, that's not a joke. The point of it is to describe the sort of ideal future that Heinlein himself wanted to see, how the government would work, how the citizens viewed life, and the philosophy behind the culture. There's multiple scenes in the book where Rico talks with his professor, and he basically just describes the politics that the book supports in multiple monologues. The system of government in Starship Troopers is a stratocracy, basically a military-controlled government, maybe not outright controlled by active military, but at the very least veterans and similar figures hold much more sway than non-military figures. Heinlein himself was in the military. He served in the Navy, so he was writing from the perspective of a guy drenched in military culture. He had a lot of respect for it and its ideals, so he used that as the jumping off point to the society of Starship Troopers. This has led to people criticizing the book, saying he's glorifying the military and by extension war, and I wouldn't completely disagree. But you gotta remember, this is right-wing Star Trek. Yes, the situations are slanted to make his idea of a society functional and like it has all the answers, because Heinlein wanted to write a story about essentially a utopia that has its struggles, but one that will rise to the challenge and show the best parts of humanity. The militarism is pushed because that's what Heinlein believed led to a better future, that once you were in the service to the society you lived in, that you would appreciate what that society allowed you to have. And it's not like the novel promotes giving up your individuality and mindlessly serving the greater good. In fact, it's the exact opposite. There's multiple moments where Rico has to come to terms that he's the one making his choices, and it's the fact he made the choice without being influenced that he could understand the value of what it means. It's very individualistic, if anything, that the individual themselves has to choose in order for something to mean anything. Now, once again, it's all very idealistic, and there are multiple times where you'll read the book and go, this could very easily go tits up if the absolute worst guy got into the wrong position, because that's true with literally any system of government. And once again, Star Trek does pretty much the exact same thing, being about a utopian future that still struggles with philosophical, ethical, and sometimes just physical threats as they explore space. It's about a better vision of humanity capable of rising to the challenge, like Starship Troopers, just in its own way. Now, Star Trek is able to explore a lot more simply because it had more time to do it. It's not just one novel, it's an entire universe with multiple different versions and series and movies. They were allowed to be able to explore different flaws the Federation might have had. So, saying the Society of Starship Troopers is fascist would be like saying the Federation of Star Trek is communist. It's a very, very, very simplified definition of the setting, to the point you kind of show how little you really know about the material being talked about. Now, this is all about the book. The movie, admittedly, is trying to be a satire of fascism, but as mentioned previously, there are some plot holes due to the disconnect. The book isn't promoting fascism. Heinlein was alive during World War II, pretty sure he would have very much not liked to hear that his book was being called Nazi propaganda, and he never intended to allude to it at all. Reminder, there are multiple scenes that directly tell the reader, think for yourself, weigh your own decisions. Pretty sure something directly in support of fascism wouldn't push things like individual choice. Now, that's not to say the movie couldn't do its own thing and push its own message. I mean, there are tons of cases where an adaptation differs from source material to tell its own story. The Shining being easily the best example of exactly this. With Stanley Kubrick deviating from Stephen King's novel so heavily, they're basically different entities altogether. Yet The Shining is a beloved horror film, with some regarding it as even better than the original story. So as long as it was handled right, there's no reason why a guy as revered as Verhoeven couldn't do the same thing. Well, this is where he kind of shoots himself in the foot a bit. A big talking point that detractors of the film bring up is how Verhoeven never read the book. He got 2 pages in and decided he hated it, so he set out to satirize a novel he never even gotten started on reading. Something that could easily be used against him, as fans of the book can just go, no shit, you think it's fascist, you never read the fucking thing. It's easy to have a warped idea of a franchise in your mind until you sit down and actually engage with it. It's why urban legends and downright stupid interpretations of story elements can spread like wildfire. So I'm going to set the distinction here. Starship Troopers, the book, is right-wing Star Trek. It's a sincere attempt at a better world future. Starship Troopers, the movie, is a satire of war movies, telling a sarcastic version of a typical war story with subtext hinting at a larger dystopia. That's the best way to separate the two and prevent confusion, since an issue that crops up time and time again is people confusing them and bringing up book details to detract from the movie and vice versa. And you want to know the best part? The confusion is actually part of the movie itself too. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole and a half. You see, Verhoeven hated the book, but Ed Neumeier was a big fan. He loved the world and setting, even if now he repeats a lot of the "it's totally a satire of fascism" talking points. He's been involved with the franchise for years since the original movie, writing the sequels and even one of the animated movies. I think dude definitely doesn't just think it's a fascist hellscape and does understand the appeal. And the thing is, the relationship best describes Starship Troopers the film to a T. It's a tug-of-war between seething hatred and genuine love for the source material. You have blatant, in-your-face moments that scream in your ear it's a satirical dystopia, children acting like rabid animals because a soldier gave them his gun, stomping on bugs while mother laughs and cries in glee, a suspected murderer that's arrested and sentenced to execution the same day he was picked up. Details that do point to the society being a bit more fucked up than people want to give it credit for. But right on the opposite side, you have moments that clearly bring in elements of the book. The book that encouraged individuality, self-discovery, and rising to the challenge to save those you care about. To believe it's a perfect satire of fascism is to go with the thesis statement that military culture entirely is a fascist byproduct, which is beyond ridiculous and shows how out of touch you are. Because no, the mere existence of a military is not fascism, because then literally every single civilization in human history is fascist, even the one the people that like that interpretation would enjoy. It's a stupid standard that shouldn't be humored. Now, probably the most egregious change is to the aliens themselves. You don't get the other races in the book, the skinnies, for example. Instead, it's just the bugs. They absolutely are show stealers, though. Their design easily goes down as some of the best alien designs in cinema. It's just iconic as hell. And it's funny because they're really just spiky ants. Other variants are beetles or wasps. They're very simple, yet their simplicity is their brilliance. You can easily look at one of the arachnids and go, yep, that's Starship Troopers. They have identity and are fucking brutal, ripping anything around them into pieces in mere seconds. And this is on top of taking entire magazines of ammunition to take down a single one. They're a great enemy for the film, and they're also part of the problem here. You see, the bugs in the book are intelligent. They can communicate, strategize, they even have FDL travel. The skinnies, another intelligent race, are slaves to the bugs. They're strong enough to force other species to fight for them. They're essentially the Covenant from Halo or the Combine from Half-Life, a stronger master race preying on others to prop themselves up. And it's only when the smaller guys come together can they fight them off and ensure everyone else is free. Once again, can't exactly call it fascist to say you should fight slavery and promote individual liberty, but the movie ignores all of these things. It makes the arachnids essentially just hyper-violent animals. You encroach on their territory and you're fucking dead. as you see with the Mormon colony that is massacred in the beginning of the film. They're territorial, genocidal creatures that kill anything that gets in their way. Obviously, there's meant to be some similarities between them and humanity, saying that they're both hyper-violent ant colonies that throw numbers at a problem to make them go away. They both even have a psychic leader figure giving orders to the drones, Call for humanity, and the brain bug for the arachnids. Once again, if taken on its own terms, then the film works well enough for this angle. Oh, humanity's become exactly like a hive of murderous ants that don't care about the little guy. The problem is the fact it wears the name Starship Troopers, because with the bugs being so different, there are plot holes that just can't work in the movie. The big one being the asteroid. So we're actually going to go into the plot of Starship Troopers a bit. Here's a spoiler warning, but most everybody has seen this already. Still, it's a formality, so sit down and watch Starship Troopers before going any further. It's a good movie. Alright, so the asteroid scene is one of the elements that was taken from the book without really adjusting it to make it work for the film. You see, at the end of the halfway mark, you get a scene where an asteroid is sent to Earth slamming straight into Buenos Aires, which kills almost the entire city. Millions of people dead out of the blue, and the asteroid was traced back to Klendathu, the home planet to the arachnids. This kicks off full-scale war and attempting a global invasion that turns into a total shit show. Humanity underestimating the arachnids and being baited into a trap. Now, if you read the book, it makes sense for a plot point. The arachnids are intelligent enough to plan out something like this and have in fact done it multiple times. It's their main way to attack and infest a planet. But the movie plays the bugs off as barely smarter than animals. Even the brain bug isn't really that much smarter than the rest. So you have to believe that these things are smart enough to know how to plot out and send an asteroid from their star system all the way to Earth, which is halfway across the galaxy, and no, they do not use FTL travel to send the asteroid. Yeah, they can't do that. As stated, the movie bugs are barely smarter than animals. It's a pretty massive plot hole, one created because the obsession with satire got in the way of the story, since they didn't want the bugs to appear smart. The idea is that the society of Starship Troopers is perfect, and that's a utopia only good enough to kill cockroaches. The reason the bugs are so dumb and animalistic is because it's meant to be as much as a system like theirs can fight. On its own terms, it works. The fervor they have over the insects is funny, but then you remember that the bugs are an ever-spreading colony that kills anything they come in contact with. No shit, humanity would want these things dead, because they literally kill anything else that's not them. The Mormon colony broke a formal quarantine set up specifically to slow the spread of the arachnids. It was inevitable they were going to end up in conflict, which leads to a popular fan theory that spread around, that the bugs didn't send the asteroid and it was just a fuck up by the Federation, and they covered their mistake by blaming the bugs, a faction they hated for years. And now they had the perfect excuse to invade and slaughter them all, something that became pretty relevant some years after the movie came out. But funny enough, Verhoeven denies this theory, saying the bugs did send the asteroid and it was retaliation for the Mormon colony. Once again, this is a big plot hole. You've never shown that the bugs have FTL technology, which is the only way the asteroid could possibly reach Earth in time for it to make any sense in the story. Now, a lot of films fuck up space travel in time. I mean, it's just something you accept and hand wave away so you can think about the larger picture. But Starship Troopers is a case where the director rejected a theory that would have made the satire much stronger, the element he intended on focusing on. It's weird that he would go, the bugs send the rock, when keeping it vague would push the dystopia angle that much more, because now the bugs slaughter two entire populations of humans, the colony and Buenos Aires. That does demand retribution. It shows they are very obviously hostile. I don't think the intention of the film was to make the bugs sympathetic like what some downright exceptional people on Twitter would claim. Instead, I think the idea was to show humanity being dumb enough to get their ass handed to them by bugs. It's not saying the bugs are better than mankind, it's saying that humanity is dumber than insects. There is a difference. But it relies on outright breaking rules the book established. You see, the bugs in the book represented the exact opposite of Heinlein's ideals. They were a massive collectivist hive mind, something that saw its population as disposable. Heinlein even went so far as to describe them as perfectly evolved communists. An entire species evolved to not care about their own quality of life and only work towards a larger goal. He spells out in no uncertain terms that the only way you could achieve perfect communism was to give up your humanity and become an insect part of a hive. This is a part of the book that the dude was just right about. So the novel bugs are the perfect enemy of mankind because they, funny enough, are closer to fascism. They are strictly authoritarian and don't want its people making choices. You serve or you die, and you will die as you serve. The bugs being so violent and dangerous in the book works because they represent complete authority. They show the damage that can be caused and the disregard for the value of life. The movie dumbing the bugs down works for the movie, when the mobile infantry also don't have their power armor, and are forced to wear light armor and shoot ineffective rifles. Once again, making it so the satire only works because they stripped away elements that made humanity stronger. So ironically, Starship Troopers the film works best when you aren't thinking about the social commentary, especially when compared to the novel. because you end up peeking behind the curtain a bit to see how much had to be changed and warped to make the fascism angle work. The sequels also end up being in sort of a weird territory. The live-action films, at least the third one, follow the journey of Rico and sort of expand on the larger lore of the bugs, showing that they're capable of much more in-depth schemes than humanity ever expected. And you did get more blatant examples of the dystopia at large. Starship Troopers 2 ends with the Federation literally rewriting history to make a guy who is a blatant war criminal a war hero, and the main character looks at her son and outright describes him as meat for the grinder. Also in 3, Rico almost gets hung despite being a war hero, all because the media used him as a scapegoat to cover up a Federation fuck-up. Yeah, the second movie exists, it's there. It's basically Invasion of the Body Snatchers mixed with the first Resident Evil movie. It's fucking weird, but those little moments where you get the larger dystopia were kinda cool. And yeah, all around, the best sequel is the third one, because Rico's back. Casper Van Dien is actually pretty loyal to the franchise, coming back for even one of the animated films. It's cool he still has fun with this, even if some aspects of it get pretty stinky. He's even trying to set up a cameo for Helldivers 2, and that's pretty awesome. He did one for Extermination. I mean, it's literally a Starship Troopers game. Come on, Casper. Come on. Now, the animated films are much closer to the novel than the original, and there's actually more than you would think. Now, there's 2 official animated films for Starship Troopers, Invasion from 2012, which was directed by Shinji Aramaki, and Traders of Mars from 2017, also directed by Shinji. Yeah, Japan actually does seem to love Starship Troopers. Already mentioned the Gundam influence, but it influenced a lot of their sci-fi. Don't believe me? Check out All You Need Is Kill. Quite literally, enough said. There's even an actual anime series from 1988 that serves as just an adaptation of the novel, though it remixes some elements, such as focusing on Rico's budding romance with Carmen and being much more of a mecha story than the soldiers just using power armor. The point is, there's a lot of Starship Troopers material out there. It's not all the best, the sequel movies in particular get pretty fucking bad at points, but there's a lot out there for fans. And really, I think the obsession with the political argument kills the fun of the series. It's part of the larger dumbass culture war where everyone has to claim a franchise as theirs, like it's territory to snatch in a fucking Total War game. It's a sci-fi movie about shooting bugs. If you want there to be social satire, you can look for it, but at the end of the day, it's just a fun movie. If you make Starship Troopers just about the politics, you kill any chance for you to look at it from a different angle. Hell, the film includes multiple scenes where Michael Ironside's character, Lieutenant Radchik, explains philosophy to Rico, paraphrasing those scenes in the book where he talks with his professor about larger ideas. And once again, he pushes Rico to think for himself and not waste opportunities in life, even encouraging him to seek a relationship with his squad mate Dizzy, who had a crush on him since high school. And it's kind of obligatory to mention that Dizzy was a guy in the book. Ha. Gay. Still, the point is that despite their best efforts, Starship Troopers is not a fascist story. It's just not. The movie tries to frame it that way, and there are hints of a dystopia, but at the end of the day, it's just not the Nazi propaganda the zeitgeist would have you believe. If you want to tackle the original movie on its own terms, that's one thing. The director and the writer did intend to allude to Nazi propaganda films, but the actual story they're working with says otherwise, and I'm still convinced Neumeier isn't as loyal to the talking points as he would have you believe. And if fascism means not letting evil, flesh-eating bugs wipe out mankind, then what the fuck is even the debate here? It's a talking point that exists solely for the sake of sounding smarter than you really are. It's the Avatar debate where you're expected to support the idea of humanity being rendered extinct, which is something only the most pretentious dickwipe would unironically clap for. There's more nuance in the world than just humanity bad. Still, that's Starship Troopers. It's a big rabbit hole, and I think it goes without saying that a lot of you guys watching are probably already fans of this universe. It's influenced science fiction as a genre, and without it, we might not have a lot of the big franchises we know of today. The obsession with the culture war side of things kills the appeal of just a fun-as-hell series. As stated, it's the Star Trek fantasy of a future society with its own rules that props up mankind in its own unique way. Is it simplistic? Is it naive? Is it suffering a bit of main character syndrome? Absolutely. But enough about Next Generation. You get the point. Starship Troopers isn't some Nazi-style propaganda piece. It's something much deeper, much more nuanced, and all around arguably more influential than Star Trek. And I don't say that lightly. Really, the debate around it feels very insecure, that the series can't stand on its own 2 feet and needs 2 groups of poop-throwing monkeys to fight over it for years on end. One side wants to claim it as a woke satire of fascism, solely so they can point at people they don't like on Twitter and going, "Don't you know it's making fun of you?" As though people can't take satire in stride and not let it get in the way of their enjoyment of something. And the other side that takes defending the property to the utmost extreme to the point they deny any attempt at satire or comparisons to the Nazis for the film. Not the book, the film. The one that Verhoeven spells out, it's there. There's nuance here. The movie wants to be a satire and doesn't really work with context of the novel. The novel is a better future story that ruffles the feathers of certain types of people. I like the book, and even I admit there are moments that tip some red flags for me. Call it a problem with authority, but any system that restricts your right to vote isn't one to be trusted. But that's just personal disagreement with the author. I can still enjoy Starship Troopers beyond that and understand what it's doing. If you want to know how stupid the debate around Starship Troopers is, think about this. There was somebody claiming the book was written as a racist screed, saying Heinlein wrote the bugs to represent Asians. Rico's from the Philippines in the book. Until next time, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys.
Brain bugs? Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
The minstrel boy to the war is gone. In the ranks of death you will find him. His father's sword he hath girded on, and his wild heart strong behind him. Land of song, said the warrior bard, though all the world betrays thee, one sword at least thy rights shall guard, one faithful heart shall praise thee. The minstrel fell, but the foeman's chain could not bring that proud soul under. The heart he loved ne'er spoke again, for he tore its cords asunder, and said, no chain shall sully thee, thou soul of love and bravery. Thy songs were meant for the proud and free, they shall never sound in slavery. The minstrel boy shall return again, when we hear the news we will cheer it. The minstrel boy shall return again, torn perhaps in body, not in spirit, and then may he play his harp in peace in a world as heaven has intended, when all the works of war shall cease and every battle must be ended.